What's happening, guys? Welcome back to Vertical Football. Welcome back to another episode of the Manchester United Fans Corner. I'm your host, Shego, and guys, it's great to be back here with you. It's Monday, and as usual, we're here to discuss Manchester United. So, guys, a lot of talking points today. As usual. We are currently doing tactical analysis in terms of what we saw in the previous game. So, guys, let's jump right to it. First and foremost, we had a very good game against PSG, 1-1. A lot of good things, and I think for me, I would say that it's not more about what we did, because many of the things we did against PSG were not the first time we saw it. You know, many of the things we did against PSG, we saw them and we analyzed them against Atletico Madrid. So I'm not going to be repeating that. It's just to say I want to credit the boys. I want to credit the manager for the continuity. I think that's the most important thing, because, you know, in football, you can see something once. That doesn't mean anything. You know, it means something when you see a continued process of trying to approach the game with that kind of setup. And I think that's what we saw against PSG in terms of a lot of things we saw against Atletico Madrid. We saw the manager, the players try to replicate it against PSG. And I think that's very, very good. And I think that process must continue. I think it has to continue in terms of, it's not just enough that we see it in preseason. When the season starts, we need to approach. When the stakes are higher, we need to approach the games with that kind of structure, with that kind of approach. And so, what are the things we said that we saw against Atletico that we also saw against PSG? Obviously, the zonal 4-4 press, I think, was there, and I like the way it was there, because we said it that you should not allow teams to build up easily against you. I love that. We saw positional rotations in certain aspects of the game. You see the likes of Dogu move from the left to the right. You saw a lot of positional rotations, and I think was really, really good. You saw Mbeumo, even sometimes here, sometimes in the center. We saw that. So that was very, very, very good to see. Other things we saw the defensive line trying to jump in a high line to try and squeeze the opposition in their half at certain moments. I think that was also very, 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 very good. We saw the build-up, the first receiving job that we also said was very, very good from Santos. I think that was also very, very nice. We saw, trying cutbacks. We saw a lot of good things really that we analyzed. And I think is very, very good that we continue that way. So, guys, what we want to do today is a continuation of the analysis, because since we've seen what we analyzed the second time, we believe and we hope it continues. So we want to do things we expect to see in the coming games. We have 2 more preseason matches. That's against Leeds United and against AC Milan. And obviously, we know the likes of Matheus Cunha, Kobbie, Mainoo, are going to be joining the squad. If not, they've joined the squad by now. So we know that they're going to be featuring in these last 2 preseason matches. So these are the things we expect to see. So we want to analyze it, and then we watch the game with that eye. Is it going to happen, right? Is it going to also mean the progression of what we are trying to do as a team? So, guys, let's jump right into it. The first one we hope to see is the midfield situation of Man United, particularly the pivot. Right? So United currently has 3 midfielders, or let's even say 4 midfielders that can play that position currently based on what we've seen in the preseason. We've seen Santos and Mount play that for quite a number of games so far. We saw, obviously, Tielemans had a cameo against a PSG, which we know Tielemans obviously can do the deep line playmaking role and can be that conductor in the midfield for us. So the question, and we have Kobbie coming back into the team. So the question is, Michael Carrick will be trying to look at which 2 would be his first choice midfield pivot going into the new season. I think that will be very, very interesting. Not just because of the names of the players. I think it's also going to be a lot of different things. For example, the first point is the midfield pivot will be, obviously, all these midfielders I mentioned, they are good on the ball. So I don't think on the ball is not going to be the decision. It's not going to be where the decision will be made. That's the truth. I think the decision will be made in terms of off the ball. And I think off the ball in terms of defensive transition. Right? I know for a lot of the preseason, if not all the preseason so far, we've seen Santos play as a number 6. And so the question will be, among all the midfielders we have, who can we trust to play the number 6? The truth about the matter is Santos has been the one playing number 6. And Santos might play the number 6 to start the season, irrespective of whatever transfer window might occur. So I think what Michael Carrick would want to be looking at. And I think what also we will try to see is how Santos deals with a highly transitional team. Because, for example, when you look at the teams we've played, and I like the way the preseason has been structured, because when I was analyzing the games, I was like, I like the fact that against Wrexham, it was about trying to break a low block, right? I explained that out that we were too central. We didn't use our wings well. The likes of Dogu came in. I did the analysis. Against Rosenborg, it was a high pressing side. The thing we got from that game particularly was our build-up. We build up well against the high pressing structure of Rosenborg, right? That's for the first half. And second half, obviously, we dismantled them, and that was very, very good. So, and against Atletico Madrid, it was about high pressing. It's about stopping Atletico Madrid from playing the high press. It's about positional rotations, which we saw also in Rosenborg's game. So we saw those kind of things in Atletico Madrid. Against PSG, we saw good things in terms of maintaining the high pressing, still maintaining the positional rotations, maintaining the high line, the defensive line, being able to react to squeeze the opponents in their own half. We saw that also. We also saw, second half when the likes of Vitinha, Neves came on board, Marquinhos came on board. We saw our ability to keep a very solid mid block to just make them to be passing around and not really have enough passes within the structure, which was also very, very good. So I think against Leeds, what I expect we'll be seeing, because I've watched Leeds, I think I've watched 2 preseason matches of Leeds. I watched the one against Liverpool, and I think what obviously you knew about Leeds is Leeds is a very highly transitional side. So if we try to pin Leeds back, what we should be expecting is there are some moments we will lose the ball. So 2 things we want to check up on. We want to confirm our strengths on the ball, which I believe we have. Likes of Kobbie, Tielemans, Santos, Bruno Fernandes, Mount. We have that quality to keep the ball, right? But you can't keep the ball for 90 minutes. So we will lose the ball at certain points. If not, we hope not much. And so Leeds, we want to do what Leeds does best in terms of transitional moments, right? Intense transitional moments. So that's what we're going to be looking at in terms of, and I think that's what these are the kind of situations Carrick is going to be looking at to check which midfield duo can be able to stop transitions, right, in a defensive transitionship. So I think that's one of the things that we expect that we'll be looking at in the upcoming games, and I think that would be a major factor in who Michael Carrick decides to start as the pivot going into the new season. Also, not just only transition. Obviously, they are good ball players. Tielemans, Santos, Kobbie, Mainoo, and I think it's going to be about number one, who is better suited to build up from the back for us. Who is that person that should take up that responsibility to be the ball playing or the deep line playmaker, right? Who is going to be the first rate receiver, right? Who is going to push high? Who is going to crash the box? Who is going to, how is the structure going to be like on the ball? I think that's also something that he'll be looking at. So we've seen Santos do it in the game so far. Can Tielemans do it better? That's what we'll look at. Can Kobbie do it better? That's what we'll look at. So we'll look at this. It's just about trying to find a balance, at least to start the season. So trying to find a balance to start the season. Obviously, there'll be rotations within the season. We're trying to find the balance to start the first couple of very, very important games in the Premier League. So I think that's on point number one. And so that's what we'll be looking at. I'll be making an analysis on that. The second one is we'll be looking at our build-up patterns. I think because obviously under Santos and Maguire, who have been responsible for most of the build-up we've done so far. Not all, but most of the build-up we've done so far. I complained about Maguire, so they were carrying ball into certain zones and everything. And I did not like it. And now Santos, was much more penetrative, much more front-footed, much more forward-thinking, right? So we'll also be looking at it in terms of if Santos is not the one doing that job, right? And maybe, for example, it's Tielemans doing the build-up job. How is the pattern going to be like? Are we going to be building up centrally? Is it going to be to the sides? For example, when you look at Santos, for example, and where Santos receives the ball most times, he receives the ball centrally. Sometimes it comes in between, as you analyze, it comes in between the 2 center halves, right? Tielemans obviously has the quality and has the ability to receive the ball, being on the left-hand side of the defense, being on the right-hand side of the defense, right? So that would be a quality, right? How are we going to build up if Mainoo decides to be given that role? So we're going to look at all those things in terms of how is it going to work in terms of our build up structure, because obviously build up is not just centrally. You can build up on the left, you can build up on the right, and different players have different capacity in terms of passing ranges, in terms of the ability to play in the side. So we look at all those things. It's going to be very important to look at it, to have different ways to build up. What's going to be the role of the defenders? The likes of Martinez come on board. So how does Martinez? We know Martinez is very, very good in our build up. So how does that work when we now have very good midfielders that can also build up? So a lot of interesting things that we'll be seeing in the next couple of days. Next point, I think, is going to be the attack. I think we have talked a lot about the midfield. Now let's go to the attack. The attack also, there are very, very interesting things. First and foremost, the attack has been fluid. And I think I really love that. Right from the beginning of the preseason, we've seen fluid attack. We've seen positional rotations, which I think is very, very good. Very good positional rotation. And so we're going to be seeing more positional rotations. For example, Michael Rashford is in the squad. We want to see what are the zones Michael Rashford will be allowed to take, right? Is it that Michael Rashford will be the winger that stays out wide, right? And then the fullback can move in, right? If it's the fullback, which fullback is going to be well suited to move in when Rashford is out wide, right? Is Marcus Rashford going to be told to move in? Which fullback will be good to stretch out the defense? So it's going to be very interesting. We already know what happens on the right-hand side. The likes of Ahmad can move in, Mbeumo can move in, Dalot can push up. We see situations even last season where Dalot would move in centrally with his run. We hope he gets better in terms of delivery. And we see the likes of Ahmad Mbeumo out wide, right? So, but we're looking at situations in terms of rotations, right? Is it going to be in, out for Rashford? We know Matheus Cunha is good when it's in. So who would you pair with Matheus Cunha? Last season, I think for the most part, we used Luke Shaw under Mejbri. So is it still going to be Luke Shaw? Is it going to be Dogu, right? It's going to be very interesting, right? Very, very interesting in terms of what we will see in terms of positional rotations. Also, is there going to be a situation whereby we'll look at it, whereby Mejbri could decide to use Cunha as a false nine and Marcus Rashford as the winger, right? And then what is that going to look like, right? Is there going to be a situation where Marcus Rashford is going to be at the striker and Cunha plays as the winger and attack the out spaces? It's going to be very, very interesting. So these are the things we are trying to look at, and I think we should look at it going into the next couple of games. Also, in terms of this structure, I think we will also be seeing, because in certain moments in the preseason so far, especially in the first game, as I said, we saw 3-1-6 against Wrexham in certain situations. And I think in other games also, we've seen at certain moments when we are on the ball, when we are in a 3-2-2-3. So I think we're going to go to see more of that structure of 3-2-2-3 at certain situations. We didn't see it a lot in previous games, but I believe we're going to see it more. I believe we're going to see it more because of when you lose, for example, when you lose a Matheus Cunha, and as a winger in that situation, and Cunha moves in, you have your base midfield of two midfielders, right? Bruno on top. When Cunha moves in, he attacks the left half space. Bruno, obviously, we see situations even last season where Bruno would attack on the right-hand side, attack the half space on the right. We've seen sometimes even have that free roaming number 10 role to attack everywhere. So Bruno also can move in to attack the half space. So you can have a box midfield like that. So we want to see it. Is it going to be one of those things that Mejbri is going to implement, right? And if for example, Cunha moves in to attack the left half space, Bruno moves in to attack the right half space, right? And we have the likes of maybe Ahmad on the side. You have maybe Rashford or Mbeumo up top, since Sexu is currently injured. And then who's going to attack that side, right? Who will be best for that? Is it going to be Shaw? Is it going to be Dogu, right? Because if Dogu enters there, it's naturally the kind of zones he has been creating in terms of the intensity, and he needs to be able to track back and do that wing back kind of pushing up and down. So it's going to be exciting to watch. So that could be a possible structure that we can see to overload the center of the pitch in terms of using Bruno and Cunha, because Cunha obviously is dangerous in that zone. Bruno obviously is dangerous anyway. So also want to see, because when I talk about the defensive, and this is one of the last things I'll see that we're also looking to see. We want to see how high are we going to try to press the likes of Leeds particularly, because that's a Premier League side, and that will show us, because Premier League is a league of transitions, right? So Leeds especially is a very, very important game I'm looking forward to see how we deal with transitions under Leeds, right? Deal with transitions under Leeds. We're very, very interested. So we're going to look at it. How high do we try to pin Leeds back, right? Is it going to be something that is going to be conservative? Is it going to be a 3-1-6, right? And with a single 10? Is it going to be pivot, right? That's why I said, is it going to be 3-2-2-3? If it's 3-2-2-3 on the defensive transition, you have 5 players that are primarily saddled with the role to defend, right? That's the 2 pivots and then the 3 at the back, right? Or is it going to be 1 in front and the 3 at the back? That's for. So we're going to learn a lot of good things, and I think it's really nice what we are seeing so far. That's the truth. I think the approach is very, very nice. Obviously, there are still some parts that the manager will want them to work on to perfect. And I think obviously that comes with, the automatism comes with playing a lot of games, understanding the structure day in, day out. But that one will definitely come in. But I think the basic structure and how we try to approach different kinds of teams, will be very interesting to see against Leeds. And I think we should also be looking at against Leeds, I think it's when we try to do our tight spaces passes against a Leeds side that is also very good in pressing and counter pressing. It's also going to be very interesting to see. So I think for me, that Leeds game would teach us a lot of good things. I think it's going to teach us a lot of good things. And there are a lot of questions that we have now that when we see it and how it plays out, I think we'll just be very, very happy that it plays out well, because it's going to be a different kind of side that presses and counter pressing, that kind of gang pressing kind of high intense kind of football. We want to see how it plays out. So it's going to be very, very good to see. So guys, a lot of good things that we've seen so far, a lot of good things that we see have questions we want to see. And one thing we've seen in preseason is that whenever we have questions, our questions end up being answered by the next game. So hopefully after Leeds United, we'll be able to come here and analyze deeper in terms of good things that we've seen. So guys, let me have your opinion on this video. Are there any things you are willing to see in the next couple of games that you think we should see? Just drop it in the comment section. We will discuss that together. Thank you very much for sticking with us. Thank you for your support. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe. Ultimately, don't forget to share. Until I see you next time, I remember my humble self, Shegun. Bye.